Do you
What's
ever
wrong?
feel like people just have these blinders on, right? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
there is so much going on. And why is it that so many people don't see it?
Because it's easier that way, right? If you see it, then you have to make a decision to either deal with it or ignore it. And then if you ignore it, then you feel guilty for ignoring it. And if you deal with it, it becomes like, oh my gosh, this isn't fun to deal with, right? I mean, it's
Right.
human nature until
Yeah.
it really
And
hits
that
you.
when
Yeah.
we look at the field of education, because I don't want to separate it to special education necessarily and general education, but I think
Right.
if you look at education in general and how many students are marginalized and
Oh my goodness.
not
Yeah.
excited about school, not enthusiastic about learning because
Yeah.
of some of their schooling experiences. So
Yes.
it's important that we recognize the things that we need to change. We also want to celebrate the things that are working well. But
Right.
I am excited because today we have a guest, Cheryl Poe. She
Hi.
is from the state of Virginia. And I don't know if I told you, Cheryl, I went to fourth grade in Newport News.
Oh, okay, great.
My
Yes.
dad was stationed at Fort Monroe.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But
Yes.
Cheryl is the founder and the owner of Advocating for Kids. And she also, and I'll pull up your little website here kind of so people can see. So if you want to find out more about Cheryl, this would be her website you can go to. And she's also president of the NAPSI organization, which stands for National Allies of Parents in Special Education.
Correct.
And one of the things that we want to make sure that we touch on before we leave today is about NAPSI's upcoming conference
Yes.
in New York
Yes.
this fall. So we'll also make sure before we end that we'll talk about that too, Cheryl. Let's see. I see we have some live viewers. So welcome in. Dina is here with us. So yeah, say hi and let us
Hi,
welcome
Dina.
to the show. And if you are watching the replay, just know that you can still make comments and ask questions because we can circle back and make sure that we respond to those questions. So Cheryl was one of our guests back in July when she had just filed a systemic state complaint. And Cheryl can give us a summary today of what that process was like. And then we're going to go into more of the recent happenings in Virginia with the systemic state complaint. So Cheryl, do you want to first talk about what that process was, what the areas of non-compliance
Mhm.
were for your systemic complaint?
Sure, I'd love to. Hi, everyone. And I see a familiar face. I see Amy Trails out there. So I wanted to send her a shout out also. But Charlene, thank you so much for inviting me back to kind of bring up a summary of from our initial interview. It's always a pleasure to speak with you on these broadcasts. So thank you. Yes, it's been a long process. I think I'd like to start with the idea that, like you said, we started this in last year in July, as far as getting at least our letter or notice of complaint, where we had already filed the complaint and the Virginia Department of Education agreed it met whatever threshold that they were using for it to be investigated and moved forward on. In September, and October, the VDOE, Virginia Department of Education, actually came to Virginia Beach and did face-to-face parent interviews. They interviewed over 45 parents that all had some very major concerns with the special education services that their children were receiving in Virginia Beach public schools, with the interviews along with site visits going into actual schools to look at records and charts. The VDOE came back with a wonderful letter of finding. Now, from the systemic perspective, the Virginia Department of Education found that the transition services on students' IEPs as a systemic issue across the whole district of Virginia Beach, they were found to be non-compliant. The other issues that were identified, and each case, each student that was named in it represented a situation, whether it was lack of child fine, denial under child fine, failing to honor a reevaluation or doing a complete evaluation. One of the school districts, the principal was cited for not making sure the students were secure in the school because it was just unsafe. That those individual cases, the district was found non-compliant. And there was a lot of strong, wonderful language that the Virginia Department used in saying, though, even though you may be in compliance on child fine on this particular setting, these are things that we found that what you did was still wrong and you need to be cautioned. And if Virginia Beach, I mean, the VDOE even said if we had a larger range to address some of the issues that they would have, but within the guidelines of what they're allowed to do as a systemic issue, they weren't found in noncompliance. So one of the lessons learned from me next time is perhaps if I file another systemic complaint, maybe look at child fine and just file it on the child fine issue and have 10 or 20 parents for that one issue. I think that would have been easier for the VDOE to come in and say that, yes, you're not complying on this, because that is an issue in the city of Virginia Beach. It just is. One of the interesting pieces is when we filed it, we received our notice of finding, and then our notice of complaint, and then our letter of finding. I was kind of like, oh, this is great. We're done. Well, of course, Virginia Beach City Public Schools waited until the last day that the appeal could be accepted, and they appealed the findings from the systemic complaint. It was a Hail Mary. It did not rise to any level of, it was even difficult for me to reply back to what they were claiming their basis for appealing, because it didn't fit in within the framework. The law is very clear. A decision can be turned over when you have new data that was not considered to show that, yes, you did this, then yes, they can overturn it. The Virginia Beach didn't submit any of that information. All they submitted, which I found really funny, because this will probably end up somewhere in somebody's desk, is that they made a copy, went to my Facebook page, Advocating for Kids, made a copy of the interview that I did with Pat Himes, who is the Director of Dispute Resolution for the state of Virginia, and submitted that as evidence that the VDOE was biased against the school district. And it's kind of funny, because in the hearing officer here in Virginia, when an appeal of a state complaint is submitted, they use hearing officers to review the information, look at the case, and finalize a decision. And in this particular case, this hearing officer really called Virginia Beach out, because they noted, they're like, in one hand, Virginia Beach is saying that I should change or find VDOE wrong in their decision because they didn't give enough guidance to the district on what their responsibilities would be after Andrew F. However, their evidence to then also show that Virginia Beach was unfair and biased was a video of, the director actually sharing information about not just Andrew F., but how the district expects, or how the state expects districts to handle specific circumstances and situations that may rise out of Andrew F. So I thought I was really pleased that the hearing officer realized that Virginia Beach was pretty much just wasting our time and taxpayers' money when doing that, but how flawed their logic was in trying to appeal the process.
Now, let me interrupt just for a second here. I was going to welcome some of the people. So Melinda is on with us.
Hey, Melinda.
Pennsylvania, and you had seen that Amy was with us too.
Yep.
Rhonda Berry from the Arc of Pueblo in Colorado is here.
Hi.
Debbie is here from East Tennessee. So we just have pretty much the whole country represented.
That's great. And I see we have Miss Miss Stilth. She's from up there near you too, in Colorado, I think.
So yeah, and here we have, let me see if I can pull this up from LaDonna. She said that she filed a state complaint in Idaho. It found district non-compliant in 6 of 8 areas. They still did not address accommodations for my 14-year-old. I found the process mostly procedural, not focusing on accessibility. I believe my next step is with OCR.
Yeah, I think she mentioned something very key. Your state complaints definitely are the procedural violations that then lead up to a denial of a provision of faith, right? So that's what your states do. I think when we're talking about a denial of, not being allowed to access a service based on disability, then yes, you're right. That's more of what the purpose of Office of Civil Rights is for, and that's, I think, what she wants to do is she's spot on.
Right. And and I just want to kind of caution parents not to expect a fast decision if you file an Office of Civil Rights complaint. I think it's still important for us to do because we need our regional and federal offices to know about the discrimination that's going on.
Exactly.
However, it can be up to 18 months before you hear back from an Office of Civil Rights complaint. So just know that it takes patience.
I have a complaint. You're talking about 18 months, but 2 years. It's 2 years. And I just reached out to them maybe 3 months ago to the investigator, the attorneys. I was like, it's been 2 years. And they are literally saying they're still collecting information. I'm like, there's not that much information to collect. But one of the things too, and because of that, though, I instead of following, I did still file other Offices of Civil Rights complaints. But my recommendation to parents is use the early resolution process. I forget what they call it. They have a special name for it. I find that to be helpful and quicker. And they will send an actual attorney from the Office of Civil Rights there to be there with you. And I think that, I'm not saying this for any political reasons, but given our current state of who is in leadership with our Department of Ed, you might be better off using the early resolution piece and really getting in there and negotiating what it is that you want, what the minimum or to the maximum extent possible, getting what your child needs through negotiations like that. Because 2 years is just ridiculous. At that point, your child, it's yes, Amy's, is it 3 years? That's the complaint that we're talking about. And we actually call them and reach them, and they still tell us, no, we're collecting information. Now, we did name one of the largest law firms that represent school districts with disabilities in our OCR complaint. So that may have impacted why it's taking so long, because it was like 3 different agencies that were involved in that process. But.
Right. And so I was going to bring up Melinda's question here. She said, so you mentioned that you may file systemic complaints in the areas that the Virginia Department of Ed didn't find a systemic finding. Does that impact a new filing on individual cases such as child find or service provision?
So good question, Melinda. The individual cases on child find, failure of child find, failure to reevaluate or evaluate correctly and fully, those individual cases, the Virginia Beach was found to be in non-compliance. So I'm not, when I say looking at filing another complaint against Virginia Beach, from a perspective of, I think the more having greater patterns of behaviors of where they are refusing to evaluate when a parent is in there alone, or having just 10 or 20 parents to show a pattern of behavior where Virginia Beach is saying, oh, we don't evaluate after the first evaluation because nothing will ever change. I think from a systemic issue, then the chances of getting the state to make the district make a full change and more training is going to be more possible. I feel that Virginia Beach's spin around this is we were only found in non-compliance on a systemic issue in one area, and that's transition, right? So in a way to get, and they have to do the training and follow the corrective action plan that will help every kid in the district. But
Right.
the individual cases, though, of course, yes, those parents and those children will have an opportunity for a corrective action for where they were found in noncompliance. What I'm saying is this is a continuation of an issue. And Aaron Spence, our superintendent, will ignore that. He will not encourage the special education department to look at all of those specific allegations that were made that they were found to be non-compliant on an individual case. He's just going to dismiss it and say, oh, that was just those cases, when really it is a systemic issue, because I see it every day. Every day I get a call. Hey, I asked for my child to be evaluated. He has documented disabilities of autism and ADHD, but the school says because he's getting A's and B's, he's not eligible for an IEP. I'm like, no, that's wrong.
I know.
So I hope I explained that a little bit better.
Yes, thank you. And I want to tell people to, if they want to get some resources that I'll put out next Tuesday morning, I'll email like key takeaways and certain clips from the video, and also additional resources about state complaints and systemic complaints. Just type the word resources in the comments, and hopefully my IEP bot is awake and will respond to you. But yeah, so I think it's, like Cheryl said, it can take a while, even with the state complaint process, especially if the district, decides to appeal, or a parent decides to appeal, that is going to, kind of lengthen the process. But so where are you now with it, and what are you looking at maybe for timelines?
Well, believe it or not, I'm still waiting. There's an opportunity for Virginia Beach to appeal a part of the systemic complaint. In fact, March 27th, 2019 should be the final date where all of the allegations in the systemic complaint will finally be resolved. Within the systemic complaint, the VDOE decided to split two of the cases because they were just so disturbed. And those aren't my words, those are the VDOE's words that they used in the findings of some actions on two very elementary age kiddos. So they felt that they wanted to give it a little bit more attention and give the school district, along with the parents, to really go through that process and really share and dig down deep into what the allegations were. So I got that letter of finding in February, like February 27th, I think is when I got that. So in that case, again, Virginia Beach was found to be non-compliant on the one issue, but compliant on the other case. So we have, again, a chance that Virginia Beach will appeal. And if they do, of course, they always like to wait to the very last day, which is March 27th. And then if they appeal, I have to wait the next 30 days to wait for another hearing officer to come back and say, yes, the VDOE did the right thing. This case was very disturbing. African-American male student who was in a preschool program, struggling with some behaviors. He was getting some special education services. However, they didn't do a comprehensive evaluation of the kiddo, never did a functional behavioral assessment. Instead, they just wrote in the private notice in the IEP, due to student's behavior, instead of allowing him to go to school full day with all of his peers, we're telling the parent he's only allowed to come half day. So, that needs to be an OCR complaint on top of this complaint already, because in fact, there were two African-American children, which kind of leads into some of the other issues that you wanted us to talk about as it relates to racism in special education. In the systemic complaint, I noticed that there were 2 African-American male students, and the way that Virginia Beach chose to deal with both of those little guys, and I'm talking preschool or pre-kindergarten, kindergarten age students, was calling mom to come pick up the kiddo or just not sending the kid to school. And then actually thinking and saying on tape that, oh, we were actually doing the parent a favor by not letting him come to school all day, because in that way we didn't have to suspend him. So, you know, these very disparate people talk about disparities in education overall, but especially special education and discipline when it comes to Black male students. This is a prime example of seeing a pattern of that happen, which is of concern. But,
right. And I know I had seen, I think on your Facebook page, the letter from the superintendent of the
yes.
Virginia Beach City Schools. And so I was, and that was what kind of perked my interest. And I was wondering, like, so what is that involving? And, you know, does that intersect with, you know, specifically special education in the district?
Well, it wasn't by Aaron Spence, our superintendent of Virginia Beach did not send the memo. It was by James Lane, and he is our superintendent for the state, for the whole state of Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I know when I get, and I'll just share what I know and what my beliefs that some of that is about. It was like a perfect storm. We had our governor kind of get in trouble for when he was in the 80s, when he was kind of doing an inappropriate face blackout thing, and there was a big call to have him be removed, on top of some very interesting cases and information I was receiving. And when I receive emails or information from parents or community members where they are saying, hey, this teacher, I had this one case where a teacher in Virginia Beach told a Black student, how would you like it if I called you a Black N-word, using it as an example of not to use the M-R word, and you know, and said it in front of a bunch of African American males, and of course they went home and told other parents, and the principal wouldn't respond to the parents' calls about this. I actually sent a letter to Dr. Spence along with the video, saying, you know, what are we doing when we have teachers using racist comments towards students, Black or white, I don't care. And then there was another incident where there were several teachers being reported to using the N-word, both in their personal time, but also in the classroom being overheard. And I think for me, I can't say that all of that information I shared is what prompted it, but I do think the media issue that was going on with our governor at the time, along with reports of an increase of white teachers using that word, using the N-word in school in front of students. And I think his timing to say, okay, our temperature here in the state of Virginia is pretty hot on racism. It always has been, but I think for him to actually acknowledge it in the way that he did was very good. That way conversations like this can be had. And there were some wonderful resources that he shared that hopefully not only the educators were used, but if the parents saw that information on my page, that they too will, looking at those resources to help educate themselves. I also have some, students in some cases, especially my kiddos, my babies on the spectrum, that they see this stuff in the media, right? They see, oh, that's, Donald Trump is saying this, so it's okay for me to say this, and not having a clue of the impact, the personal impact of it to those that they're speaking to. So at times we need to be able to say, explain to our students that are so much more literal and don't understand that maybe the history of that just because you're seeing an adult that I know it should be adult that you can use as a role model acting in a particular way doesn't mean that you can, or it doesn't hurt someone. So I was glad to see the memo. But I think it's going to take more than a memo, right? To make a significant change. It's going to take the superintendents of all the districts paying attention to those kinds of actions and being very transparent about it, and responding to it in a way that is sensitive to the community it offended.
Right.
And that I haven't seen that happen yet, and probably will never happen in my
I
lifetime.
know. I wanted to say hi to Susan. She's here from Washington State, and Lois has joined us also. Rhonda has a comment. She says, we run into the same issues with preschool and kindergarten students with disabilities being sent home or encouraged to stay home. We are told from our state education agency that preschool is non-compulsory, so it's not a denial of FAPE. Any suggestions on how to file a systemic complaint on this? It is rampant.
So if the preschool pre-K student has an IFSP or an IEP that says they are supposed to receive instruction from this time to this time, it is then a denial of FAPE to change that based on something that's not related to the IEP. I would definitely send a clarification letter to the state. I would ask questions like, if a student has an IEP that requires him a certain amount of minutes of instruction in school, and it's on his IEP, even though preschool is not a requirement, isn't the school still responsible for providing FAPE for that student? And if that answer is yes, then you should be able to file. But if not, I would take it up to OCR. I definitely think it would be worth it. And again, yes, it's going to take a while, but I think using that early resolution piece, you can get your needs met quicker. And I would do them like, you can put the same information, but just do separate complaints when you send them to OCR. So it's not just one big massive complaint, but identifying individuals, send them as a packet all on the same day. Then hopefully the same attorney will be assigned to it to review it. And then that way you can kind of lump them together and say, can you consider this systemic, since I'm sending you so many of them? But I would really challenge the State Department if special education services are required, if any student is receiving special education services and they're not getting them because they're telling the student to stay home because of their disability, it shouldn't matter if it's compensatory or not, or
compulsory. Right.
Compulsory.
Yeah. So I think,
what do you think?
What you can do is, like what Cheryl was talking about in some other situations, is you can file that systemic state complaint and then at the same time file OCR. Is that correct? I mean, that's my understanding, Cheryl.
Yeah, well, yeah. In fact, in our systemic complaint, the VDOE actually references OCR. So in some of the pieces that they could not investigate, they literally said, if OCR was involved in this, blah, blah, blah. So I actually did that. I followed the directive from the VDOE on those. And again, it was the African-American male students that they were saying, oh, you go to jail as timeout and all that stuff. So we did that. And then I figured also using the state's letter of finding as part of the OCR complaint piece, it just makes your complaint to OCR stronger. So,
right.
And even in her case, if they said that in writing, she could file an OCR complaint against their Department of Education, because they're discriminating.
Yeah, and Rhonda's in Colorado, and so I think you could do, several things, and it's not that much more time consuming because you're going to use the same evidence and the same kind of wording. And you just tweak it for the form that you fill out. But Rhonda, the other thing is, like Cheryl said, if you did a letter of clarification to the, Colorado Department of Ed, got something back in writing that still didn't seem like it was, what should be happening. Right. The other thing that you can do is to write a letter to OSEP, the Office of Special Ed Programs in Washington, D.C., and ask them for clarification. And again, that usually is several months before you'll get a letter of guidance back from OSEP. And so that even though it's not a legal ruling, those letters of guidance I've found really helpful when I'm
They're wonderful.
in IEP meetings advocating
Oh,
for
yeah.
kids.
Oh, they're
So,
absolutely wonderful.
that's the
You could
thing
use
is,
those in due process. You could use those, send your letter like she recommended, get it back, and then send it back to the state as part of your complaint. Oh, yeah, that's a wonderful idea. I've
yeah.
not done that yet. That's one thing I haven't tried yet. Maybe I need to. You've inspired me, Charmaine.
Well, it's like, trying to use other things besides IDEA. And,
Yeah,
you just kind of approach it from different angles because there are, the discrimination is an angle you have to use Office of Civil Rights for,
correct.
the denial of FAPE, you have to use IDEA, but you
Yeah.
can combine, or the other tip I have for you, as long as we're talking about tips, is Medicaid. There have been times when Medicaid funds in a district are misused. And that is another way that you can call attention to some systemic problems in a district. So I probably have had 3 or 4 parents in the last 5 years find Medicaid fraud in their school district.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so that is a really serious violation, and
Yes, it is.
have to pay money back. And
Mhm.
so anyway, you just, and it's not to, be so aggressive and so negative, but it's to shine a light on all the different areas in that district, in that state, that need
Mhm.
to change.
Yes.
And on the same hand, I want you to also encourage those positive teachers that your kids have, because we don't want to throw teachers under the bus when they're out there advocating for our kids too. But when we see things that are not right, it's kind of like at the airport, right? See something, say
Say
something,
something.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I agree. It's like I don't believe at all that filing a state complaint or an OCR complaint is negative in any way. I think it is kind of like our duty, because if you are a parent, like the one that shared the question, that has the ability, has the knowledge, has the skill, has access to information and resources, and if you can file a complaint on behalf of those who can't, whose parents maybe don't have the skills or the time or the energy or the idea that they can, or feel confident enough to do that, you could be saving their children from a denial of faith or a sense of discrimination. So look at it as more so of you're not only helping your own child, you're helping other children that come
Right.
behind your child to have a better opportunity. I think that when we all start realizing that the resources that we have to get the districts to do the right thing, because let's face it, if the education system across the country as a whole was developed and implemented in a way that I think it was meant to be implemented, there would be no need for people like me and Charlene and all the advocates and the Cuddies of the world. But it's not that. It's the idea that the only reason why we have laws like anti-discrimination laws that you can't discriminate, or IDAs, because we as a people, as a society, we needed to put parameters around that because we couldn't trust it. I mean, we had to develop laws because it was happening. People were excluding children with disabilities from going to school. As we all know, Black kids weren't, in the beginning, Black people overall weren't allowed to learn to read. And then when schools were allowed, they weren't allowed to go to school with white students where they had all the resources. So we live in a society where making a complaint, filing a lawsuit is the way to change a culture that is not conducive for everyone. So
Right.
I agree. Yeah.
And so let's see, we have another comment here. Let me read it. It says, I'm in Kansas. I filed a complaint with the state against district. There was corrective action awarded, but the state did not actively enforce the actions. And that's a common problem too, right?
Yes, that is a common problem. So my I um, if a state has said that a district has to engage in certain activities to compensate, make up for whatever they did was a violation. And the state, at least in our state, there are different departments, right? So you have a department that's just responsible for addressing special education issues, dispute resolutions. I think then if that entity is not doing what they're supposed to do to ensure the corrective actions are happening, I think you then go above their head, go to the next we use either superintendents, assistant superintendents, whoever would be the next person up. I would send a letter saying, hey, the federal law says this, however, your state department is doing this. Before I need to go outside of the state to have this addressed, I'd ask to have a face-to-face meeting, because I think that would be a great time for you to get in there and identify who the key players are, have a conversation in a way that is working with them collaboratively. So when other issues come up, you can use that resource that you made on this issue to address other issues. And then if that person ignores you, we have what we call our highest superintendent, the superintendent for the state. I'd reach out to him and the board. And then if that didn't work, I'd file an OCR complaint against the state ed. The state, everybody is held accountable some way, somehow.
Right.
And it's not easy, but if you don't fight for enforcement, things will never change.
Right. Exactly. And Susan from Washington State says, we filed a state complaint and got a resolution fairly quickly. I wanted it to be a group complaint, but the other parents said they were tired of fighting the school and just needed to concentrate on their kids.
And that's okay. I think that is okay. Raising a child with a disability isn't easy. School's not the only thing that parents are necessarily fighting with. Sometimes they're fighting with insurance companies, medical providers, family members. I think that that is okay. And just as there are parents that may not want to fight, there will be parents that want to fight. So you just keep looking. You don't give up. You keep looking. You look at what other parent support groups are out there. Check out your CHAD groups. Check out your autism groups. Check out your Down syndrome groups. Check out other groups that are doing work similar to what you like, and see if you can find a group of people that would allow you to use their name in a complaint. But it's okay. It's okay for a parent to say, you know what, I'm done. I'm done. I've been there, done that. Came back around to it, but yeah.
Well, and I know I've had a couple of people ask, like, how many people have to be in a group in order to make it a systemic complaint. So I don't know if that's like state determined, or, if there's, because I don't know of any federal kind of regulation of how many people have to be named in the complaint in order to be systemic. So
that's a very good question. I always was under the impression, which I think may have been the wrong impression, but I kind of use this as my guide. I say 3 or more parents, and 3 or more on particular issues. However, the VDOE for us in this state, so I don't know if it's true for all states, kind of look at patterns of behavior. So if you have multiple patterns of behaviors, then that could be a state complaint, meaning, and that could be, in elementary school, all the preschool kids that are African-American are being asked to be sent home early. That's a pattern of behavior. Or in high school or middle school, 8th grade students aren't developing transition plans for any 8th grade students. So that's a pattern of behavior. So our state's position is that any patterns of behavior that violate the regulatory language or laws could be a systemic complaint. I just for myself use the number 3 or more, but I would, and this is what I recommend to anybody who's interested in doing it, send a letter of inquiry to your state department and say, hey, I have 3, 4, 5 parents that all have various violations as it relates to IDEA and our state regulations. What is the state's requirement for it to be accepted as a systemic complaint, and then follow the rules? Because it
Right.
probably does differ state to state.
Yeah. And that's where you really need to, like Cheryl said, go to your State Department and see. I mean, usually there's, some kind of a manual, a guidebook from the State Department where you live that will have information about dispute resolution. And those procedural safeguards that you get offered at every IEP meeting and you probably
Yes.
decline at every meeting, please, every once in a while, take one of those and read it again, because that is where your rights lie. And when we don't understand that 35-page handout about procedural safeguard rights, it
Right.
becomes really challenging to take action and create change. But Melinda had a question earlier, and I missed putting it up, but she said, I followed your Facebook page and there seemed to be some real pushback from the district. What is your advice to parents on getting through what becomes a long and arduous process?
Oh, what a good question. So I feel that one of the things about this particular systemic complaint that was probably helpful to the parents is that there was a group, Kathy Hines and Michelle Norman, they developed a group called Parents for Faith. So there was a support group built in for the actual individuals that were named into the complaint. So when parents struggled with the processes, or not every parent was there, not all their issues. I think there were two parents whose issues were found to be in compliance, and that was quite upsetting to those parents. But having a support group of the people that went through it with you, I think helped them manage their emotions a little bit better. It doesn't make it any less stressful, but it makes it a little bit easier when you know you are walking the path with other people that are going through the same exact experiences as you are. Having that kind of support, that someone understands you in a way that another person who hadn't been through this could understand ever. So I think
Right.
that was really, really big. And I think with the pushback, the main pushback, I think a lot of the pushback came directed more so at me as the advocate doing it than the actual parents involved. So I don't really care.
That's true. Yeah.
I like,
There is that throw the advocate under the bus game.
yeah, I mean, like I said, the idea that Virginia Beach went to my website to download the interview that I did with Pat Hines to send to the hearing officer as a sign that the VDOE finding was flawed because there was favoritism. Come on, I mean, that's yeah. I think yeah. So again, I think I got a majority of the pushback more so than the parents individually. I think the parents, it was hard for some of the parents when when their issues weren't found to be in non-compliance because their cases were really good. There's this one parent, this one case in one of the schools, elementary schools, where the poor kiddo, his place for a break was he would go into the bathroom to get away from everyone, and they wanted to kind of suspend him. The AP was just horrendous with what she did. Parent saw it, was there, witnessed it, was able to write it up in great detail. It was submitted. But because, with their state complaint, it has to be within a year time frame, so they couldn't do anything about it. And the strong caution that the VDOE did give Virginia Beach about the behavior toward this child and this family, it wasn't enough for the family to feel really heard. But it is what it is, and
Right.
I think that understanding going through this, even if you don't get what it is you're seeking right away, I think that they will pay attention and respect you a little bit more when you go into that IEP meeting, just because they know you're that parent, right? They know you're the parent that will speak up and will continue to speak up. And then eventually they'll, things go your way. But
Right.
the main part, I think, is the support group that the parents themselves had
Right.
to go through the process.
So I just have to show you, I actually have coffee mugs that say, hello, I am that parent.
That's nice. Oh, I love it.
So if you want a mug like this, I can hook you up.
Okay. Can I get one that says, hey, I'm that advocate?
That's true. That's true. We got to get ourselves in there. So Melanie has a question. She said, Cheryl, I find it difficult to get parents on board, although some may contact me privately with concerns. How do you get parents on board?
Well, hello, Melanie. How are you? She's also part of our DAPSI group, so I want to say hi to her, give her a shout out. I guess I find it hard to kind of answer this question because I don't run into the issue of parents not wanting to be on board. I run into an issue with so many parents with so many concerns that want so much to do that I only have so much time to do that piece. Again, my recommendation would be to start a meetup group. If you're looking for a group of parents to deal with special education issues in your district, start a meetup group. That's one way to get like-minded people. Start a Facebook group. Go to your CHAD meetings and do a presentation about what it is that you are trying to start up. Go to an Autism Society meeting, Down syndrome meeting. I know there's so many different individualized disability specific groups that if you go to each one, and then I think you'll have a better chance of getting a nice rounded meaning, lots of disabilities represented, lots of issues represented of people that would be willing to work with you. It takes time. I've been doing this forever. It's not like I just put a hat out to start doing advocacy a year or so ago. I've been doing this since my now 23-year-old, I don't know how old he is, 23, 24-year-old, was in freaking kindergarten. So it does take time, but I highly recommend doing that. Finding groups of parents that have children with disabilities that are already established, and go and introduce yourself. Go and propose coming together and start doing monthly chats over coffee or on Facebook or on the phone. That's my recommendation.
I think I think those are great strategies. And Susan said, she was the one that talked about filing the state complaint in Washington. She said, of course, the resolution was another IEP meeting for my kid and a memo. So the system remains unchanged.
I don't know what she means by that. Of course.
Well, I think maybe what she's saying is that, the letter of findings was have another IEP meeting, go back to your IEP. And, a memo to the school district versus really any major kind of change, within the district.
Well, and I have to say, we had like a page and a half of corrective actions when we submitted our systemic complaint that we wanted to happen. And the VDOE did not take them. What had happened, part of it was a discussion before the systemic complaint of ideas. There were a group of parents that were concerned. So there were ideas that we thought of and discussed with the VDO before we even filed the complaint. But when we filed the complaint, they continued to be in there. And training is our big piece. That was our big thing, is training on specific issues. And I think that people will say, oh, that's not that big of a deal, but really it is, because if the districts are getting trained on how to do it correctly, you ask for access of the training material, you go into the IEP meetings, they're not doing what they've been trained to do. You pull that out and you say, wait a minute, you all were trained on this piece and you're not doing it. And it just gives you more credibility in the meeting to get done what needs to get done. However, a lot of ours too, where kids are owed compensatory services, meaning that they have to make up for instruction that was lost, we have to go back to the IEP meetings. And the IEP meeting, along with the parent, the advocate or attorney in some cases, discuss the amount of compensatory services that's required. So I don't know if you're saying that your memos just say go back to the team to discuss it, or is it the memo saying go back to the IEP team and discuss the amount of compensatory services that are required or the kind of training that may be required? So I guess I need more clarification. I don't know if that
Yeah.
helps.
So Susan, if you want to type in more, Karen's with us from Texas, and she identifies herself as that parent.
Yeah.
There are a lot of us out there, right?
Yep.
So I wanted to remind people to type in resources, and so you can get some additional resources about state complaints. But also, before we leave today, Cheryl, I wanted you to be able to talk a little bit about NAPSI
Yes.
and your upcoming conference in New
Yes.
York.
So we're really excited. We had our first conference last year, our inaugural conference, and it was well attended. And it was just so inspiring to meet parents that who felt that this conference really spoke to them, that they were able to get information out of it, that they literally could leave and go back and advocate with. So we're excited to do our second annual conference. It'll be October 18th, 19th, and 20th. It is going to be in Auburn, New York. That's out near Syracuse, northern part of the state of New York. And we have some wonderful pre-conference activities. Auburn is hosted in an area that has a strong civil rights presence historically. So we're having a Friday day activity where we will have a bus tour that will take you to the New York State Equal Rights Heritage Center. We're also going to be visiting the Harriet Tubman House, along with the Women's Right National Historic Park. And so that's just to kick it off, to kind of entrench everybody and get everyone excited about our efforts in the conference and being around all these historic things that are similar to taking care of the needs of civil rights, because special education is the civil rights. It's the idea that children with disabilities are different than others and that they have every right to be educated well. And we will have, of course, a wonderful social Friday night where people will be able to interact with the attorney. So the attorneys, the advocates, and the parents will all be mingling, interacting together, talking with each other. And we are just super excited. We just put out a request for a proposal. Melinda, if you're still online, if you could share that link so that anybody that's interested out there, Charmaine, hint, that wants to fill out a request to present for us, we would love to have you. We're also going to be doing some live interviews, also kind of like this on Facebook with presenters as we start filling in the gaps of who's going to be presenting, just to give people a chance to kind of meet the presenters, kind of hear what their style is, hear what their information is, and hopefully intrigue you to want to attend. So a lot of things are changing with NAPSI, and we're really excited about our conference coming up. So I hope you all will attend, and we may even be doing a little bit of live broadcasting at the actual conference if the internet allows us to.
The technology gods are with you, right?
Yeah, the technology gods are with us. Yes, we might even be able to catch some of this live.
I think that's an awesome way for people, from a distance, they can still get some of that information from those speakers and have that opportunity to, hear speakers that you often can't go, unless you are going a distance for a conference. So I think that's a wonderful idea. I'm going to check and see if we have any other. Okay, good. So Melinda has so is this where people can go to get that application, or?
Yes, if you go to the link that Melinda's put up for us, you'll be able to access the information for the request for proposal, but also the announcement to save the date that has the hotel, so you can call and get your room. Go ahead and just reserve your room now. It also gives you some information on that website about some of the activities we're going to be doing Friday night with the tours and going to different historical civil rights activities. So yes,
great. So yeah, and then the other thing I wanted to share with you was Cheryl's website.
Oh yeah, Advocating for Kids, and I'm really excited because we're going to be making some changes too. Advocating for Kids the goal, and I'm crossing my fingers and knocking on so much wood, is to, we're going to be doing some training groups. They're going to be within a closed Facebook group, but they're going to be strictly for training, teaching parents that are novelists who just want to learn the basics, up to parents that are maybe interested in becoming an advocate and going over some of the skills that you will need. So we're really excited about launching that. Just waiting on some technical help when getting the website fixed the way that it needs to be fixed. But please stay tuned for that. We're real excited about that because I believe, the Facebook groups are great, but I really want them to be geared that when you are done being in our group, like for a 3-month period of time, we're going to pre-test you and post-test you, and you're going to be able to see, it's going to be measurable, right? You're going to be able to see that when you first started in this group, you only knew this much information, but by the time that you're done, you're going to be well more skilled or have the access to resources to learn what you need to learn so that you can really do this yourself. So you can be a competent advocate for your own child and feel better about yourself and empowered.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And I did want to remind viewers that we are on every Thursday afternoon. Usually our broadcast is at noon Mountain Time. Today we switched that up a bit. But next week, we will be back at noon, and we have an advocate from Texas who's going to join us, and he's going to be talking about cameras in special education classrooms. And he was an advocate that was really instrumental in getting the law passed in Texas. And I don't know about other people. I have, I guess, kind of a variety of feelings and thoughts about cameras in special education classrooms. My first thought is if we had more kids included, we wouldn't have to worry about things that happen in that room down the end of the hall. And then, do all classrooms need special education or cameras or, things? I know there are some districts that have cameras on buses, and that can be helpful. But then you also hear about cases of, well, because there's other students in the video, now the parents can't view the video. So there's all kinds of issues, like everything, right? But I think it's going to be a really good topic. So I encourage people to come back next Thursday at noon Mountain Time, and we'll be talking about cameras in the special education classrooms. So let's see. So we have another comment. She says, excellent information. Thanks for educating us. Yes, sure. It's great.
My and pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I love being able to have guests on because together we're better, right? And we can all share ideas and experiences, and we help more kids when we do that. So I really appreciate you, Cheryl, coming on. Do you have any other last words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, well, thank you for doing this because it is important that we share information. So I appreciate you, and I thank you for having me on. And I just am thankful for all the parents that are willing to stand up and fight the fight, because it is difficult. It can be hard. But just know you're not alone, and your efforts at times, even though it may feel tedious and painful and like you may never get through it, just know on the other side of it, it feels good because you are putting your energy and your effort into making sure that your child is treated with respect and dignity, and that they are given the opportunity to learn equally to that of a student that doesn't have a disability. And it's quite empowering when you see those gains that your child makes. But it's also okay to take a break. It's okay to say, I need a break right now. I can't do this. But just know that you got to get up and come back to it because it doesn't go away. You can take your break, but it doesn't go away. And just find a support network. Find people in your community or online that can build you up, support you when you're down, give you that word of encouragement whenever you need it. It's important to have that. I mean, I have that. I have a friend, a fellow advocate, that every morning will either send a picture to each other or say kind words just to get us going, because sometimes going into those meetings can be draining. So that's
Yeah.
all I have to say. Is thank you all parents for trusting people like me and Charlene to help you get through this process.
Oh, exactly. And I
You
know
all
I
and
want
Nancy.
and I wanted to give a shout out to people that are members of our parent advocate trailblazer group that we have. It's a private Facebook group. And they are doing the same thing as parents around the country as far as blazing those trails, but knowing that we need new parents coming right afterwards because that trail gets overgrown really quickly. So my passion is to help you as a parent become a more effective advocate. And one of the ways that I do that is by having these live shows each week. So we can talk about, subjects and issues that are really critical. So I would love if you are live or watching the replay to type in what other topics you're interested in, because I want to make sure that we're providing shows that, really are pertain to your situation. So feel free to give me suggestions for new topics. But we are at the top of the hour. I want to wish everybody a wonderful afternoon. I'm Charmaine Tanner, and I hope to see you next Thursday. So take care.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Charmaine, do I just hit stop?